Australia's Southern Alps lies the mighty Snowy Mountains scheme. Based on a vision of sending water to the dry inland, it is a vital part of our electricity and water industries today. Day and night, all year round, we rely on the water and energy that Snowy Hydro provides.
Well, where to next, Jace?
How about Wilkinson's Valley before the weather closes in?
Day in, day out, Snowy Hydro people go to work.
Yeah, possible.
They are the power behind the scheme.
We're going to head on.
They make sure the farmers of the fertile Murray and Murrumbidgee River valleys to the west get the water that they need. At the same time, water is harnessed to generate electricity for the heavily populated southeast of the country. The Snowy Mountains scheme is one of the most complex multi-purpose hydro schemes in the world. It's located in one of Australia's most spectacular natural environments. The Snowy Mountains are part of the Great Dividing Range and rise in parts to over 2,000 metres. Their sheer height and expanse form a natural barrier to capture rain and snow, which makes them ideally suited for a hydro scheme. Snowy Hydro uses the natural cycle of water. Rain and snow fall on the mountains, then run off into streams, creeks and reservoirs. That water flows into rivers, which in turn flow into the ocean. The sun shining on the ocean makes the water evaporate. It rises and forms water vapour. The water vapour cools and turns into water drops in the form of clouds. When the clouds meet the mountains, rain or snow falls to start the cycle again. Water is a renewable resource. Snowy Hydro also follows the cycle of the seasons. In winter, half of Snowy Hydro's water supply falls on the mountains as snow, over an area that is larger than Switzerland.
That's 21.
The snow acts as a huge natural storage of that water, and it lays in wait, dormant, until spring comes. During spring, the melting snow is collected by many small intakes throughout the mountains.
Yes, operations. This is Max. I'm down at 8 Mile Creek, mate. We've just finished clearing off the racks here.
Yes, we've just got about most of it up.
Yeah,
About
pull it up.
The scheme's 16 major dams hold the huge volume of water from the snowmelt, as well as the rain that falls during the rest of the year. Eucumbene Reservoir can hold 9 times the volume of water of Sydney Harbour. The water is stored in the reservoirs until it is needed. Snowy Hydro's most vital role is to provide a reliable supply of water to the Murray and Murrumbidgee rivers for irrigation and river management. The areas these rivers flow through are some of Australia's most fertile lands, but lack a natural, reliable water supply they can depend on. Each year, Snowy Hydro, in conjunction with downstream irrigation dams, supplies an additional 2,360,000 megalitres of water for irrigation. With the guarantee of Snowy Hydro water, these irrigated areas produce $8.5 billion worth of food a year. They not only put food on tables across Australia, but also across the world, providing Australia with millions of export dollars. The Snowy Mountains scheme was based on a vision that was developed in response to the tragedy of the dreadful inland droughts of the 1880s and early 1900s. A number of concepts were put forward. The solution was found in the proposal for the Snowy Mountains scheme. It would collect and store the alpine waters for irrigation and the generation of electricity for the southeastern states. The electricity would pay for the irrigation scheme. Some of Australia's best-known rivers rise in the Snowy Mountains. Some of this water flowed naturally westward, feeding the inland river systems, but most flowed into the Snowy River to the east, largely untapped, and poured into the Great Southern Ocean. The Snowy Mountains scheme was built to dam that water on the eastern side of the mountain range and turn it back under the mountains to flow westward through tunnels. The water is released into the Murray and Murrumbidgee rivers to be carried west to where it is needed most. Australia is the driest inhabited continent in the world. Regular droughts continue to be a natural part of Australia's climate. They can last many years, so our agricultural areas need a reliable supply of water. This is when Snowy Hydro's contribution is particularly important. During droughts, the Snowy Mountains scheme can supply more than a third of the water in the Murray River, as well as water to the Murrumbidgee. This helps farmers and households not only in Victoria and New South Wales, but also in South Australia. Water from Snowy Hydro provides vital support for growing the food we need. Before the water is released for irrigation, Snowy Hydro also uses it to generate electricity cleanly. When there is a high demand for electricity, the stored water is channeled into huge pipelines. The water enters the turbines in the power station. The huge force of the descending water makes the turbines spin to operate the generators and produce hydroelectricity. Transformers boost the generated voltage to 330,000 volts. The electricity is then sent on its way over thousands of kilometres of transmission lines to centres as far apart as Melbourne, Canberra, Adelaide and Sydney to meet the energy needs of households and industries. Planning of the Snowy Mountains scheme began in earnest near the end of the Second World War. This was a defining moment in Australia's history. The scheme symbolised growth and optimism and the belief in what Australia could achieve as a nation. There was a need for additional labour in Australia following the war, and men and women came from more than 30 countries to work side by side with Australians on the Snowy Mountains scheme. The land they came to work in was rugged country. It was a maze of almost vertical ravines and steep, narrow chasms, often too steep for horses. The men and women who came to build the scheme had to be tough. They lived in tents and cabins in isolated camps, working in rain, snow and mud. More than 100,000 people undertook the difficult and often dangerous work needed to bring this ambitious scheme into being. People who may have been enemies during the war found themselves willingly working together and starting a new life as part of a multinational workforce. This was the birth of multiculturalism in Australia. Under the leadership of Sir William Hudson as the first commissioner, they took on the challenge of constructing the scheme. Over 1,600 kilometres of roads and tracks were built to bring in the enormous equipment needed to build the dams and tunnels and power stations. Deep underground, out of sight, enormous tunnels were pushed through the mountains to channel the water back through to the west. 7 power stations and 80 kilometres of aqueducts were built, 145 kilometres of tunnels, 16 major dams, a pumping station and hundreds of kilometres of transmission lines. It took 25 years to build and was finally finished in 1974. It is an amazing world-class engineering feat. And it wouldn't have been possible without the resilience and resourcefulness of the people who built it. Summer brings long sunny days to the Snowy and a burst of life to the mountains. This is when most of the outdoors work gets done.
Hey, Des. How's it going? Sitting all right?
Okay, so a couple of days.
Maintenance work is carried out on the scheme's facilities, which ensures it will operate for hundreds of years. The Snowy Mountains region is a popular recreation area all year round. The lakes and streams are well used by anglers in search of trout. There are dams to see and reservoirs to enjoy. There are several power stations open to visitors, one of which is deep underground. More than 100,000 people visit the scheme each year.
Well, folks, if there's not any more questions down here, we'll...
As a major tourist attraction, Snowy Hydro makes an important contribution to the local economy. The region is a rich place for many species, some of them rare or endangered. Snowy Hydro is sensitive to the unique environment in which it operates. As with any human undertaking, the Snowy Mountain scheme has had an effect on the environment. But Snowy Hydro makes a major contribution to the global atmosphere by providing energy cleanly and efficiently. Hydroelectricity uses water, a renewable resource. By generating electricity with water rather than coal, the scheme saves about 5 million tonnes of carbon dioxide from being released into the atmosphere each year. Straddling the boundaries of the 690,000 hectares of Kosciuszko National Park, the Snowy Mountain scheme is designed to have minimal impact on the land. Although the scheme covers such a large area, most of it is underground, and its engineering features cover only about 2% of the landscape.
I'd just like to see us keep a good handle on that drainage that's down through there and make sure that we don't have any...
A close working relationship with the National Parks and Wildlife Service ensures the conservation of the catchment areas.
Yeah, 6 months would be great.
If you've got a chance, can we pop up to Slinks Pass and have a look?
Into the 21st century, Snowy Hydro is focusing on meeting the challenges of operating in the national electricity and water markets.
I've been looking at the inflows. The market prices are good this morning, but they look like they're going to be lower this afternoon.
Snowy Hydro will provide a reliable and flexible energy source to the national electricity grid well into the future.
For the morning and afternoon peaks. Thanks.
All operations?
Yeah, I spoke to them. They seem happy with the float level settings.
As the colder months set in again, Snowy Hydro workers prepare for another winter. In the irrigation areas, farmers race to harvest autumn crops. In the cities, the demand for energy starts to rise and the massive Snowy Hydroelectricity generators kick in.
Yeah,
Yeah, hello, Pete. This is the system operator in Sydney, mate. Loads are pretty high tonight. We've got a thermal generator potentially about to fail. Can you confirm you've got 1,000 megawatts of fast start reserve available, please?
That won't be a problem, Mick. We're going to have to use that T3 plan if necessary.
Okay. Could you confirm the maintenance on Unit 6 is complete? We might have to use the full capacity tonight.
Yeah, mate, we restored Unit 6 earlier this evening and all units are available for service.
The scheme's fast response hydro generators not only provide energy to meet peak demand, but they can also kick in enough power through Tumut 3 power station alone to provide 1/4 of Victoria's total requirements. With computer links throughout the electricity grid of southeastern Australia, demand can be met within seconds by the mighty turbine. Energy. Snowy Hydro provides clean, renewable, fast response energy and emergency support to the national electricity market. Water. Snowy Hydro supplies life-giving water to inland Australia through the Murray and Murrumbidgee river systems. The mighty Snowy Mountains scheme is based on a concept that was developed a century ago. Yet in today's world, that concept continues to serve a vital purpose in meeting our water and energy needs. With Snowy Hydro, we can rely on energy and water into the future, naturally.